welcome to Digital Shift, also known as Corporate Evolution Tales. Join us as we dive into the dynamic world of digital transformation. From illuminating case studies to captivating narratives, we uncover the stories behind companies' journeys toward digital excellence. Whether you are a seasoned corporate leader or an aspiring innovator, our podcast explores the shifts, challenges of modern business evolution. Hello everyone, this is Digital Shifts aka Corporate Evolution Tales, and today with us is Ranvir. Hello Ranvir, how are you?
I'm very well, Mariam. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well,
I'm
thank you
excited
so
to be
much.
with you.
Yes, thank you so much for accepting the invitation. We already work together, we have that friendship already there. But yeah, I think it's amazing to have you in this podcast because I know about your experience and I'm sure you can share a lot with our audience. So thank you again. Awesome. Well, would you like to share more information about you before we will dive to the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Mariam said, my name is Ranvir. I'm currently the Director of Marketing and Business Development at MessageSpring. We're an IT SaaS company based in Bangkok, but we also have offices around the world in the US and in Armenia, of course, and in Hong Kong. Yeah, part of my career has been involved in the operational excellence field. I used to run operations here in Thailand for the world's largest insurance exchange. And before that, I started my career as a product owner for a local fintech company. So my career progression has been fully in the tech space, mostly working with startups and SMEs. And now I'm helping to grow platform both regionally and globally.
Yes, that's amazing. Well, how you think about that transition you mentioned about being product manager, and of course we will go to digital shifts and like the stuff about it, but how do you feel about that being product manager, which is not so technical, right? Position generally, but
Yeah.
deciding to move to other field.
Yeah, well, it's really strange because, all of those shifts in my career happened very, very close to each other. So I went from a product owner to being where I am now within 2 years. And I started my career as a PO simply because I believed in the company. I believed in the product that they were building. So I was actually the first hire there.
No.
They were like a brand new company. So it was a huge, I would say, leap of faith, for both the founder to trust in me, but also for me to risk my career working with a company that had absolutely no track record. But I believed in the message and, I started my career with that mindset that I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to get in there, get my hands dirty, build a product, lead a team, and see it to fruition and see how it would help and improve the lives of the people that we were working with at the time.
Awesome. Okay, let's do this. We will start with the general question about digital transformation and what are your thoughts?
Okay.
And then we can just, based on that, we'll have other questions as well.
Sounds good.
So,
Yeah.
what do you think about digital transformation? How do you feel about it?
It's very interesting because digital transformation for me, I feel like it happens every day at this point. You wake up and there's always something new happening in this world. And, for me, I see that as a really brilliant thing, right? We're at a time now where we're really pushing the boundaries of human excellence, right? And productivity on a really global scale. So it's very cool to see that. At the same time, however, I think that there's some technologies out there that do have a huge potential, but are not currently being realized or harnessed. And with a little bit more work, I think can be extremely powerful, innovations and transformations that will, push the world and society forward.
Yeah, agree. And do you think there is some kind of thing or like logic on what parts of company or the product can be digitalized, or as we like to say, like automated, so it's easier with the flow to work?
Absolutely. I think that, with regards to operations, right, a lot of operational tasks can be automated today. I mean, I highly encourage that actually. So I'll give you an example. In my last gig, I was actually brought in to work at Baltec for, just a year. And my goal was to just improve all automation systems within that company. right? Bring them into the 21st century and modernize all the systems so that they wouldn't need such a big operations team anymore. They wouldn't need me anymore,
Yeah.
right? They would maybe just need a junior that would just have to click a few buttons. Save a lot of money, save a lot of time, right? And speed everything up.
Yeah.
It's such a win-win. So for me, operations would probably be the number one.
I see. Cool. Could you walk us through like different stages or phases of digital transformation that is coming to your mind when like sharing based on your experience? For example, the one that you just mentioned. Is there any specific steps that like people should know about that they need to take?
Yeah. For me, I think that with operations excellence processes, people really get bogged down with the technological aspects of it, right? They want to dive straight into, okay, how do we automate? What can we do? How can we make things easier? But they forget that these systems are being automated to help people, right? Businesses are fundamentally about people. So you need to have those human interactions and discussions with the people that you're automating the systems for. So my methodology and what I would recommend, people that want to go in and be change management consultants or operational excellence consultants would be to have those one-on-one conversations with as many members of a team as possible, right? Understand how they work. Do they like the way they work? How would they want things to change? How could you make their life easier? While also understanding the company's requirements, right? Of obviously, working more efficiently, saving money, whatever it may be. And then that's how you can kind of find a balance to draw wireframes, to draw mind maps, so on and so forth. So, in my last gig, I'll give you an example. My notebooks that I got on onboarding, they're, I think, like 50, 60 pages each in a notebook. I went through like 3 of them in the first 3 months. Simply because I was just taking notes in interviews with people the whole time. So I think that a lot of people fail to take into account the human aspect of automation as well. So that would be the 1%.
Yeah, there were so many good points. I mean, I think that's really good point generally, as you mentioned, that taking into account human aspect in the process of getting to the digital shift and making stuff automated. But I think that a lot of people are generally also afraid of that part, that if they will share about their opinion or like they will share their experience on that process so you can automate it, they will lose their job, right? So I think that's also about the communication there as well. So you need to be transparent and mention, because all about digital shifts, in my opinion, is about improving, but it's not about like firing people or like doing layoff just because like that part was automated. Because even with having automated process, it's still, as you mentioned, we still need human beings to make sure that everything works. And at least for a year, or if not more, you need people to maintain, to follow the process, that it really works, because they're, even with super experienced companies that are that have this big experience in helping doing the digital shift, it's still that they need people to make sure that it works, even with the experience. It's still about following, maintaining, sharing the feedback, getting surveys, answers, all that stuff. So do you agree with it, or it's like more no for you?
No, absolutely, right? I don't think anyone should want to go in there and just fire a bunch of people because they can. I mean, I wouldn't say it's an idea of wrong or right, but let's just go ahead and say it's the wrong thing to do. But part of digital transformation and automation, it's kind of an inevitability at some point. There's a reality to that. So, which is why we often see people online on LinkedIn or, even famous businessmen that have made it in their careers say that, people are not going to be replaced with AI or with anything that can automate a system. They're going to be replaced with people who know how to do that.
Exactly. Yes. Agree.
So there's a balance.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about the knowledge and people being also flexible. So even though the process is automated, it doesn't stop there. It's just continuing with improved process or improved tool that you can use to learn and be more professional in it. Definitely. And you mentioned about mapping and like having the notebooks. Do you think this is like something that people that are starting or they are even on the beginning of the process of digital transformation. So you think that having those notes and documentation, generally having the documentation of everything before even going to action, it should be important for people, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, of course, everybody has different preferences. I mean, I know some people who do really great work, but just can't write. They just don't
Yeah.
want to do it. They grew up working on a laptop and they just want to open notes on their Mac and just type a bunch of notes. But for me, I've always been one of those people that learns and retains information better when I write things down. So that's just a
Yeah.
preference for me, I guess.
You mentioned about AI, and I just remembered that right now we have people, even in our company, that they prefer to have AI note taker with them in every meeting. Like this note taker is even coming earlier than them to the meeting, and they are just like generating the text and summarizing stuff, which is incredible. I really love it. But still, I mean, I think if you are taking notes, it's the most important, though there are also summarizing points. But still, it's like, I don't know. I'm also like a paper person that still enjoys to have like the notebook and like a pencil so I can take notes. So yeah, really cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, the other question that I think will be interesting to discuss with you is what were some of major challenges that you encountered during the digital transformation journey, or like anything that you can remember from your experience that can be considered as a challenge?
Yeah. I think I'll split that one into two parts. I can talk about like my own personal challenges, but also some of the challenges I've faced trying to implement digital transformation in any of the jobs that I've had. So for me personally, I think it's been a matter of just knowledge, right? I think like, as I said earlier, these new technologies are coming up every day, literally. It's so hard to keep up and so hard to learn. And, sometimes your brain can't even store all of that knowledge that the world is throwing at you. So I think the challenge for me is actually knowing what those technologies are and actually deciding which ones to filter out. Which ones do I want to know? Which ones do I not want to know? Right? Which ones are useful? Which ones are useless? So I'll give you an example. Like when Facebook, now Meta, first released the metaverse, I was very interested in that. I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like there's this whole new world online, and I spent all this time learning about it, right? And now, like a year later, we find out that it's totally useless. I don't even think they have it anymore. So, sometimes you make those mistakes when, maybe I should have learned about cryptocurrency, right? Which, was a big thing, but I didn't bother to learn about it because my approaches to finance are maybe not as progressive. So that would probably be a personal challenge. In terms of a company challenge, I think I'm going to expand on what we were talking about earlier with regards to working with people and hearing their responses. Because sometimes when you talk to people about automation and things like that, they clam up. Because that they're thinking like, oh, if I speak too much, my job's gone. So that's the challenge in getting the messaging across and being like, oh, chill, this is to help you. So that would be, I would say,
I agree with that. I think the fear of generally having the digital transformation or like automating stuff, it's the fear that is similar to being replaced by AI, but it's still like we have so much to improve before getting to the point when like we will say we don't need people, we need just robots and automated processes but it's all about communication, definitely. And it's starting with, I think the companies like we are working in, they are good in it because we are starting with communication and explaining. So during this time, I got to the understanding that it's all about communication and making sure that it is as transparent as it can be for people to understand why it is done, and it's not to harm them, but improve the process to, I don't know, get more money from that process, or like make it easier to work with the tool that you have, or create a tool so you don't need to do manual work. So it's not just like to replace people, it's more about improving the process to help them. And on that base, I think it's all about the communication and making sure that people know about that stuff. before even it started. Because usually I notice, like, of course, there are companies that are starting their digital transformation themselves, but there are also companies that prefer to have their like partnership with other company which is experienced in it. And I think it's good to make sure that these kind of companies are aware of stuff that is going on in that company, or what is the issue that they want to automate, or like what gap they want to improve. So yeah, I think it's very important to communicate. We'll agree with that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. But do you also have any like personal challenges that you faced on your digital transformation journey? You know, maybe, I mean, even similar to what I experienced or something
Yeah,
else?
I think it's very similar. And besides that, it's also about the expectations. I was speaking about this during other episode of this podcast. That yeah, it's all about the expectations being set correctly with the client, as we are calling, like the company that wants to have that digital transformation. I think it's all about setting right expectations when obviously when you are paying for the service, or like you are paying for the change, you want to have everything in 1 minute, or like you want to have it as soon as possible, and you want to have everything. And it's all about setting right expectations and showing that no, there is not like I will give you everything, because physically I can't do that. There are steps that need to be taken. There are levels of changes that should be done, because every change during digital transformation, it's so important to do it carefully, so you are able to gradually do the change and make appropriate improvements even during that process. So I think it's all about setting the right expectations with the company with whom you are partnering on this change, or like even if you are doing it in your own company, setting the right expectation with management team, with employees, and yeah, all that stuff, like having right dates, making sure there is a plan, everyone is following that plan. So all about expectations and also documentation, because as you mentioned, like, even with starting, right, you said you are taking notes and you are making sure that you have those notes during the process. I think besides those notes, there is also important, every change should be documented. So you need to have the documentation set on place when you are even completing. Even though you did great job, you should have like the closure document, you need to have like updates, sync meetings, notes. So it's all about the documentation as well. So anyone that will come during the process or at the end, they can be easily onboarded on the process. So you are not harming the change, or like you have people that know about the change, so they can use the tool or the change or like the process properly. So yeah, I think it will be from my side as addition.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, the documentation has to be an iterative process. You know, you're definitely right, especially when you're working in a team. You know, you never know who's going to come in on that team or who's going to leave, right, for whatever reasons. So having that documentation is a great way to bring people in and out of a project. But also, if the project goes really, really well, it's a great resource to go back and be like, oh, I did it really well here. Maybe if I apply the same blueprint to a next project, it will be equally as good. Or if it went really bad, then you know the pitfalls to avoid, right?
Yeah, me being like a project manager originally, I always am for the documentation and having also lessons learned, even though it's something very specific to project management, but it can be always used anytime. So it's all about lessons that you are learning, and you need to document them so others, so you can share it with other people and they can learn and not do those mistakes, maybe new mistakes, but it will still be like they will escape the part that you already failed on. So yeah. Awesome. Well, have you observed any positive changes, like in customer satisfaction, or anything that you can feel is done or like shared with you after being able to support with digital transformation on other parts of the processes?
Yes, definitely. Because, I mean, if technology is implemented correctly, right, and the use case is also marketed in a way that the customer understands is beneficial to them, they will obviously feel and react positively towards that. So that's another aspect I think that's very important is the storytelling, right? You can do all of these really cool things internally, come up with these cool processes and deploy it. But if your customer doesn't understand what it is, why you're doing it, and how it helps them, you can't craft that story, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of have that last stage aspect really mastered as well. And that comes from your marketing teams and your customer success teams. With regards to customer satisfaction, I think, most of the time technology speeds things up. And we live in a world that values convenience, right? That
Yes.
values lesser steps into doing things. We also have a much lower attention span. I'm very guilty of that. I'll be honest with you, very guilty. I mean, anything that does that for me usually, results in positive reinforcement from your customers. And yeah, it's a great stepping stone to then build upon when you, build future products or when you try to iterate on the same product even further.
Yes, agree. Well, about like the positive changes we spoke, what do you think about technologies or trends that are also helping or supporting on this path with the like digital shifts and being generally exploring in the future? So what do you think about the trends? Do you think it's like important to follow them, or it's all about the experience that you have on one thing that you're doing good and just following with that or using the same thing again and again?
So that's a really good question, actually. I think, yeah, I mean, I think it could go either way, really, right? Like if you have a team where you have different people who are experts at what they do and they have expertise in technologies that correspond to the work that they do, and you can find a way as a project manager to kind of fuse those things together, then it's fine to have an individual that just knows one thing about,
Yeah.
about the process or knows a specific set of things about a process. But if you don't have a team that's like that, then yes, I think it's important to kind of have this collective learning environment. But yeah, the technological trends that are coming up now, especially with productivity tools and the ability to create storyboards, the ability to create
Yes.
wireframes and stuff, it's very good for collaborative learning and collaborative, project work. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, agree. I think generally people should follow the trends, just not to leave behind. It's always good to have skillful people and making sure that in whatever you are good, you need to keep it, right? But also making some changes and working on self-development, it's always helping to stay professional, because specifically as you mentioned, like with the world in technology, it's never stopping, and it's so fast going, like before anything, it's basically like you need to run after it. And even though you are good in something, I think it's really just to keep your level of professionalism, or like being specifically in company that is providing this kind of service. I think it's all about making sure that you know about trends and you are modifying them or integrating them to your process, so you can have equally like in whatever you are good, but you also do something new. Or like it's not new, it's more about like a better technology, because I think the changes that are done, I'm not saying that everything is good. Sometimes it's like useless stuff is also there. But it's also about like good stuff, or like the good changes or the improvements that were done to the programming language or the framework that you're using. So it's also very important to have that self-development set on place when you are basically providing this kind of service. So yeah, it's definitely for following trends, but yeah, also making sure that in whatever you are doing, you're good in it your way. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, no, go ahead.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, I was going to say that I think the final aspect to that as well is, if you're looking at the external environment for your business or for the company that you work for, if you're an employee, right? It's also about perception.
Yes.
So I mean, I can speak for MessageSpring. We're all trying to get certified in different aspects of our company and different aspects of, of our expertise. The BI guys that are getting certs related to that. I've got a few certs that are related to marketing. It's not because I don't know what I'm doing. It's just to reinforce to external customers that I am an expert at what I'm doing, right? We're certified. We have proper protocols and things like that put in place. So when you're actually putting your company or yourself or your business, if you're a founder or an owner out there, the perception of that goes a long way.
Yes, for sure. There are people that are like making fun of the amount of certificates that I have. I will not lie about it. But I think I agree. It's not about certificates or the amount of them that you have to show your experience, because I think in IT it's generally about the experience. So even though you will have hundreds of certificates, if you don't have experience, they are worth of nothing. Oh, but also, as you mentioned, for companies and for professional like us, I think it's important to show that we know and we have that experience. And yeah, I mean, for client, you need to work with them for several months to show your experience. But with these certificates or
Yep.
like the protocols that you have or the badges that are gained to your company, I mean, it's still a way that you can show in short time what kind of experience you have and like what kind of experience there is for your company, so that you are providing a service for. So awesome. Well, I think this will be our last question for this podcast, and it is: what advice would you offer to other companies to take into account when starting their digital transformation journey?
Yeah. So I think I would just reinforce what I've been saying throughout this entire podcast so far, right? Is don't forget the human aspects. Make sure that you communicate very clearly about your transformation journey, right? What your goal is, what your plans are. Make it very clear that this is to help the workforce, not to hurt the workforce.
Yes.
But also keep in mind, I think this is a good thing for me personally, but I would actually be very real with members of my team too, right? And tell
Yes.
them that, look, like we're going forward, right? And if you don't keep up with the times, you're going to get left behind. And that's just the inevitability of it, right? And that might also drive, motivation for individual productivity and collective productivity on your team. So yeah, for me, it would just be don't forget the human aspect, keep learning
Yes.
and keep communications open.
So great points. Agree with all of them. I think based on our discussion, that's actually also a summary of this podcast. So yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all about self-development, but also about having the documentations there and all that stuff. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Ranvir, for being here today with me and sharing your experience. It was a pleasure to speak with you and share with the audience your experience. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Mariam. You can
Sure.
call me back anytime.
Oh, yes, we will. Thank you.